Hello, I'm Bill Moss. This is American Patriots Have Responded. Welcome to Mutiny USA, Day 15. Today I want to talk about the increasing censorship in the media. This is part of the mutiny against America. Make no mistake of it. News agencies are being told by Facebook to not give out election results on election day, even if they think they have a clear winner. Now, I don't know about you, but when did Facebook become the arbiter of what is sent out in the news? When did they become the arbiter of truth? When did they all of a sudden have the right to fact check people on a free speech platform, protected by the law for free speech, and given special concessions for allowing free speech, and then they turn around and they start doing all this censorship? We've seen it for a long time. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Recently, Facebook decided to take down every account I have. They refused to let me put another account on. Some of the accounts, there was nothing there that they should have taken anything down for. There was never a complaint from them. There was never a notice that I was violating standards or anything of that sort. They just decided that one account I had two posts on. Two posts. And they pulled me down. Well, that's okay, because I don't need Facebook, and neither do you. We don't need CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS. We don't need these lying stations that are left-wing propagandists. Who has the right to tell you what you can say? I can understand if there's something threatening. I can understand that, if it's a danger to somebody, them shutting you down. But I've watched, and we're a neutral organization, I've watched as conservatives have basically been bullied by Facebook and Twitter for several years now. They use people like Snopes to fact check us. Well, if you want to have a little fun, check out the record of the man and woman that runs Snopes. You'll find they're not squeaky clean, and they're not the type of people that I would trust with any information to decide if it was right or wrong. Liberals love it because they side with them. Other fact checkers, if you look, there's no conservative fact checkers on Facebook. Only liberal ones. This is a strict movement to suppress the speech, the free speech of the people. They've even went to the extent that they censor politicians, people with groups that support certain political parties, and they went to the extent they've even censored the president and his staff. Twitter actually pulled some of their staff members' pages down, as well as the president for a while. I haven't had any trouble with Twitter yet, but I'm looking for it. I know enough people have. And speaking of Twitter, an interesting thing is, when the president's page got pulled, Kamala Harris did not like what he said. And guess who her press person is? She's a member of Twitter's board with a lot of pull. Nothing wrong there, right, folks? Nothing wrong there. Silicon Valley, Facebook, Twitter, these liberal places, 95% of their employees' donations go to Democrats. And they're controlling what the media can say, telling them not to give out election results that look like one person won or another. They're controlling your free speech. They're controlling my free speech. They're controlling the speech of the President of the United States. You know, they might not like what he says. I don't always like what he says. But he is the President. And if he can't speak out freely, the same as President Obama did, there's a problem. And then we get to the mainstream media. Mainstream media is another joke. Have you watched CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC? Have you watched those shows? When was the last time they pulled a Republican on the show that they didn't try to attack him or her? But yet when they pull a Democrat on, they're very friendly. It's really interesting. Vice President Biden is running for president right now. It's obvious there's some mental capacity problems there. He can't remember what office he's running for. He keeps saying he's running for senator when he's running for president of the United States. He wanted to have the debate where he could have a half-hour break in between the middle of it to rest. Are we going to have a president that rests for a half hour when the nuclear football needs to be taken care of? Are we going to have a president that needs to rest when our men are overseas dying and they need his urgent attention? Are we going to see more people like in Beirut and other places that when the going's down, when things are going down, he's going to be absent because he needs to rest? I don't know. But I do know when he gets on these stations, if he can't answer a question, they carry him through it. This is very concerning to me. It should be very concerning to you. If you stop and think, this is the most powerful man in the world, the man that's elected president of the United States. The whole free world depends on him to remain that way. It's no secret that we have advanced and carried democracy across this globe. We've protected it with our soldiers and their lives across this world. And to have somebody in there that can't stay awake or can't stay alert, it concerns me. If you think you can, then that's your opinion. This is an opinion that I'm giving you here. This is my opinion. It's not the opinion of American Patriots Have Responded or Citizens Against Terrorism that I founded. This is just my personal opinion. And then we come to the issue of Hunter Biden's computer. Have you heard about that? Many people that watch these mainstream news shows have no idea. I've talked to a lot of them. They've not heard anything about it. Well, just to catch you up, a computer was sent to a computer shop in Delaware. The owner's blind. He couldn't necessarily say it was Hunter that handed him the computer. However, before anybody starts getting up and saying that, I want to point out one thing. The receipt that he signed on his computer for the work to be done it's my understanding, has been verified by the FBI, and it is Hunter Biden's signature. Now, the thing about this is you take CNN. Don Lemon has called it a Russian conspiracy hoax, citing a statement by former CIA people like John Brennan, who has been discredited because of their corruption, as proof that this is a Russian collusion hoax. Yet they leave out the part of the letter that these people wrote. I'm not going to call them gentlemen because I've got a low opinion of them for the things they've been caught doing. I'm going to say these people. To be a gentleman, you have to be good for your word. I try to be that. CNN and the other medias, if they do mention this, are leaving out one important part of that letter, and that is the part where they say this has nothing to do with a Russian conspiracy. It's amazing how they can omit facts. They're also not covering the story of the Biden's business partner, Tony Bobulinski. He's turned over messages and documents that show Hunter Biden was Joe Biden's point man, selling Vice President at the time, Joe Biden's office and influence while he was in office. There's no mention of the kickbacks. There's no mention of anything else. Only Fox News and OWN News are carrying the story, and some of us podcast hosts. Now, this gentleman has documents because he said in the board meetings, with Hunter and Joe, he says Joe pushed them to use his office to make money. The computer shows that percentages of every one of these deals that Hunter Biden was cutting with China, Russia, Ukraine, these other countries, Joe was getting a cut of it. This is a problem. Now I want to go back to Hunter Biden's computer. Hunter Biden's computer shows the same story. So Tony Bobulinski's, the former CEO of one of the Biden's businesses, his documents back up what's on the computer. And they expand. They show even more crime and corruption. His testimony of Joe being there. What Joe had to say. All of that is very important. And the American people have the right to know before they go to the ballot box. Yet, the mainstream media, Twitter, Facebook, are suppressing this. This is voter suppression, and it's done by hiding the facts, as well as interference in the election process of the United States. Media and mainstream news have circled their wagons around the radical left-wing communist faction of the Democrat Party. They're using polls that are heavily oversampled with radical left-wing people. And what they're using them for, you hear how much Trump is lagging behind. What they're using these for is these are the polls, these media outlets that have circled the wagons are using to try to discourage centrist Democrats and Republicans from going to the polls feeling all hope is lost. There's no need to vote. There'll never be enough people. Well, that's a lie, folks. You go to the poll, you vote for who you want to vote. Don't buy into the polls. If you want to vote for Biden, you vote for Biden. If you want to vote for Trump, you vote for Trump. But don't listen to these polls. These polls have been tainted. Now, this is something I learned about in my education. You have to have a blind poll. You can't set out and decide, well, I'm going to call this person because I like what they're going to say. You can't do that. You have to have a serious poll. And then you have to take into account how people are registered. And you have to do the mathematics on it. And they're not doing this. If they sample 90% Democrats, 1% independent, 1% and 9% Republicans, guess what? There's going to be a lead on the Democrat side. If they would sample the same in reverse, you would have a lead on the Republican side. If you're going to go into it knowing what their party is, then you need to sample a percentage based on the per capita of the Democrats, the Independents, and the Republicans in the country. That's the only way to get a fair poll, and nobody is doing that. That's why when Trump was elected in 2016, everybody was amazed. People were melting down because the poll says, oh, Hillary's got this one. She's going to beat him by 100 electoral votes. Well, guess what? It did not happen. Many people have cried over the fact that she won the popular vote, but she didn't win the electoral college and she should be president. No, that's not how it works in a republic. We've got our Constitution. We've got it set up so that people have that not just 2 or 3 cities on the coast are controlling what the whole country does. That's not right. If you don't like it, I suggest maybe Venezuela or Cuba. Russia, I think, is nice this time of year. I wouldn't know. I've never been there. I have no desire to go. You could, give up all your rights, move over there, and stay there for a while. And while you're at it, why don't you give up your citizenship to the United States? And then you can turn around and come back in and reapply for citizenship if you decide you need it. If you decide you want away from the communist country, once you see what one's really like, don't come to America and try to change it. And don't listen to those that do. We're an American country. We're a proud country. We're a strong country. And we better start getting up and voting and using our minds in who we vote for. We need competent leadership. We need strong leadership. We need people that don't bow down to the other countries, that don't cut personal deals with the other countries, and a quid pro quo. We've heard a lot of quid pro quo. Well, I think when you get done watching the investigations as they come out, I think there's going to be a quid pro quo Joe. It's already in the evidence that's been released. And if you don't know about it, you're just not looking in the right places. And Fox News is a little bit leaning to the left on certain shows. Some shows they lean a little too hard to the right too. But I will tell you, if you go to OWN, you'll hear the story. If you come here, you'll hear the story. If you go to Dan Bongino, you'll hear the story. You see, my agenda is to save America, to save our freedoms, to save our people from the violence that we're seeing in the streets. And if you think the violence is bad right now, you wait as we get closer to Election Day. Even after Election Day, that's when it's really going to hit. Because our intelligence that we have right now is that if President Trump wins, there's going to be a lot of violence in the street. And our other intelligence tells us that if Joe Biden wins, there's even going to be more, because there won't be anybody there that will hold him back. Now, you might say Joe Biden will hold him back. I don't know. He finally made a little speech about, we shouldn't be doing this in the streets. But he's the one that's wanting to defund the police. He's the one that's wanting to do away with our prisons, do away with our jails. He thinks bail is unfair, that people should just be released, ROR, on their own recognizance. And we've seen criminals released like that during these during these riots. They're made sign a little paper saying they won't participate again in the riots. They leave the courthouse with their little ticket. They go back in the streets, and the same night they riot again. It was reported back at this that there were some people arrested 7 times in a 24-hour period in New York for rioting who had signed the paper when they got locked up each time. And they were released, including one that was wanted on 2 murder warrants. Is this the country we want? Is this the life we want for our children? I grew up watching the bread lines in Russia. I watched the starving people standing in line for hours to get a loaf of bread and a stick of butter to take home to feed a whole family. There was no meat, there were no beans, there were no potatoes, there were no vegetables, just bread and butter. Now, I'm sure the officials ate better than that. And if you want an example that can happen here, look at the incapable leadership of one particular politician. The one who is responsible for calling the House in session to work out a stimulus deal, to send money to starving families, to boost their unemployment, to enhance it, who sits at home, drinks wine, gets their hair done, and eats $15 a pint ice cream out of a freezer that costs more than most middle-income people's houses. Does it kind of remind you of Marie Antoinette? Let them eat cake. That's how they look at you and me. I'm fortunate. I've got food. I've got what I need. I'm not a rich man in wealth, but I know how to survive. And I've got my own place I can do it on that I will defend. Not everybody's as fortunate as me. So for you that are out there who are struggling, you're in my prayers. I've been asked several times by several people to run for political office for Congress. I will not do that. If I did after my first term, I would probably be killed. Because I would go into office and I'd be the yuckety yuck little freshman congressman for a year. And I would follow along and I would trace the money trails, the handouts by the lobbyist. I would find out who was buying who. And by the time I run my second term, I would expose all of that. Washington's not ready for that. That's why they're having trouble with President Trump, because he's exposed a lot of the vile dealings. He's exposed not only the political corruption, but he's exposed the pedophilia, not only in Hollywood, but in our own government. There'll be a lot of people, if he's elected president this time, that I believe are going to end up going to jail. Because pedogate is real. I can remember everybody making fun when we mentioned Pizzagate 8 years ago. And guess what? Pedogate proved it was real. There are children being rescued out of houses and places, tunnels and everything else, that have been held, taken from their parents, kidnapped, put into sexual slavery and bondage. Yet the news remains quiet on that as well, except for Fox. Why? Other than pushing for one agenda, my question is how many of these news people are involved in this pedophilia? It runs deep. Tom Hanks has left the country, gave up his citizenship, and become a French citizen, he and his wife, because he knows he's in trouble. He was on Epstein's plane along with Clinton and a bunch of other people. So as this comes out, we'll try to keep you informed. But please beware. This whole media thing, this whole Facebook thing, this whole Twitter thing is to suppress your free speech. It's to stop you from being able to put the word out. And it's to discourage you and make you feel like there's no need in voting. So no matter what you do, don't let them win. Get to the polls. Some states are early voting right now, or you can vote on election day. I'd say if you can go into your courthouse and vote early, I would get her done. Because we don't know how much trouble there might be at the polls come election day. There's probably going to be people there, just like it was in 2016, such as Black Panthers, standing outside to scare people off. The only thing I can tell you is if it's an area where Citizens Against Terrorism is and we catch wind of it, we will be at the polls to get them out of there. And you will be allowed to safely vote. If we have to walk you from your car to the poll and walk you back to your car and follow you to make sure nobody else follows you out of there, we will protect you. This whole thing is sickening. I'll be glad these elections is over. And then we can put it to bed for about 20 minutes until somebody else tweets, let the impeachment begin. Just like it did 16 minutes after the last election. You see this pattern, folks? You see what they're doing to us? You won't find me on Facebook no more. You won't find Pat Freedom on Facebook no more. You won't find Bill Moss or Billy Moss on Facebook no more. They've got me blocked where I can't even get in with a strawman account on a different computer with a different IP. Now you tell me how they're doing that. But you will find me on Parler. And my Parler handle is Moose. Let me find it. I want to give it to you. I apologize. It's a big one. Here it is. You can find me on Parler, and I hope you got a pen. If not, you can replay this and get it the second time. Just fast forward to the end. Moose at Moose 888-675-661189. That's Moose at Moose 888-675-5661189. You can also find me as William Moss at Toolman Senior on Twitter. That's William Moss at Toolman Senior on Twitter. And you can find me here at rumble.com when you get onto the Rumble page. You'll see the little thing at the top bar there that says videos. You click on the menu beside it, click channels, type in Cat News at the search menu, and you'll find American Patriots Have Responded. Once that you hit the search for Cat News, you'll find American Patriots Have Responded. You'll find us there. So we also do YouTube, but not very often. It'll probably get more now, just simply because of all of this going on. But I like Rumble. Rumble is good for free speech. They don't censor us. They let us speak our words, and they let us get out to you. We need that in America. Thank you, Rumble. And thank you for listening. And until we talk again, good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.